Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive deep into sleep.
Always ready to talk sleep.
We're using Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep as our guide today.
Right.
We all know we should be getting enough sleep,
Right.
but it's easy to brush it off.
It is.
Like, have you ever really thought about how messed up your immune system gets when you're sleep deprived?
It's more than just feeling tired, that's for sure.
Walker really lays out the consequences. Increased risk of Alzheimer's, heart problems.
Doubling your risk of cancer. Think about that.
It's wild. And the thing is, we're the only species that deliberately chooses to sleep less.
No survival advantage, we just do it.
Exactly. So for the longest time, even scientists were stumped. Like, why do we sleep?
We know why we eat, why we drink.
Right. Basic survival stuff. But sleep, it makes you vulnerable.
You can't do anything while you're asleep. Seems like a bad idea from an evolutionary standpoint.
And that's exactly what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
It must be important if it's stuck around despite that.
Exactly. And that's what Walker dives into. He's a leading sleep scientist, totally obsessed with this stuff, and he brings the receipts, all the research.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with something we all experience.
Yeah.
That feeling of being tired at night and then waking up in the morning.
Right, the internal clock. Our circadian rhythm. It's a 24-hour cycle, and it's not just us humans.
Oh, I know this. Like, even plants have it, right?
Exactly. Walker talks about the Mimosa pudica plant, the one that folds its leaves at night.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Way back in the 1700s, scientists were baffled by it. They thought it was just reacting to sunlight.
Makes sense.
But even without sunlight, the mimosa kept its rhythm.
Huh.
One of the first clues that living things have this built-in timing system.
That's so cool.
And now we know it's all controlled by this tiny area in our brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
The what now?
Suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short.
SCN, got it.
It's like the master conductor keeping everything in sync. Hormones, body temperature, all based on light cues.
So when we mess with our light exposure, like staying up late staring at our phones.
You're throwing the whole system off.
Makes sense. And this whole internal clock thing, it's not exactly 24 hours, right?
You're thinking of the Mammoth Cave experiments.
Oh, yeah.
People lived in total darkness and their sleep cycles drifted.
They did. To what?
About 24 hours and 15 minutes. Shows our natural rhythm is a bit longer than a day.
Huh. Interesting.
Huh.
Explains why Monday mornings are so rough. But, okay, here's something I've always wondered. Why are some people morning people and others are night owls?
Chronotypes.
Yeah, those. Is that just preference? Or is there something biological going on?
Walker says there's a real difference. We all have that master clock, but our peak alertness times vary.
So some people are hardwired to be up with the sun.
And others are wired for the moon.
So if you're a night owl forced into a 9 to 5,
You're fighting your own biology.
yikes. We'll get into the consequences of that later, I bet. But speaking of messing with our internal clocks, let's talk about jet lag.
Ugh, jet lag.
I think everyone's experienced that.
Totally. It's that disorienting feeling after you fly across time zones.
Yeah, you're a zombie for days. Why does it hit us so hard? Especially going east.
Remember how our clock naturally runs a bit long?
Yeah, the 24 hours and 15 minutes thing.
Eastward travel forces us to shorten our day.
Ah, going against the grain.
Exactly. It's like trying to fit a 25-hour day into 24 hours. Westward travel is easier. We're stretching it out.
So there's a biological reason those eastward flights feel brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But let's switch gears for a sec. Let's talk about caffeine.
The fuel of champions.
Right. Millions of us rely on it to get going in the morning. What's the science behind that?
It all comes down to adenosine. This neurochemical builds up in our brains the longer we're awake.
Adenosine. Got it.
And it basically signals to our brain, hey, time to sleep. Caffeine blocks that signal.
So it's not giving us energy. It's just hiding our tiredness.
Exactly. And then comes the crash when the caffeine wears off.
All that pent-up adenosine hits you at once.
Like a ton of bricks. And Walker says how you experience that crash, how sensitive you are to caffeine.
Yeah.
It all depends on your genes and your age. Some people process it fast, others slow.
That's why the same coffee hits people differently.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's get into what happens when we actually do fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's not just our bodies powering down, right?
Definitely not. It's a whole process, different stages cycling through the night.
Like a sleep cycle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got non-REM sleep, or NREM, and then REM sleep, where the dreams happen.
Ah, yes, dreams. We'll get to those. But first, break down these sleep stages for me. What's happening in our brains and bodies during NREM sleep?
It's all about slowing down. Brain waves slow down, muscle tone reduces.
Deep sleep.
Deeper than you think. There are actually 4 stages of NREM.
4.
Yep. from light sleep to that deep, slow-wave sleep Walker talks about.
So deep sleep is where the magic happens.
It is physical restoration, cell repair, hormone regulation, memory consolidation. It's all happening.
Wow. Our bodies are busy while we sleep.
Like a nightly tune-up. Walker says this is when we release growth hormone, repair tissues, build bone and muscle.
And we move information into long-term memory.
That too. It's crucial.
So we're not just resting, we're rebuilding. What about REM sleep then? Dreamland.
REM is wild. Rapid eye movements, brain activity ramps up, and those vivid dreams kick in.
Our muscles are paralyzed then too, right?
Exactly. Prevents us from acting out those dreams.
Good thing. I'd hate to jump out of bed while I'm flying in a dream. But what's the point of dreaming? Is it just our brains messing with us?
Walker calls REM sleep the overnight therapist.
Interesting.
There's evidence to back that up. During REM, the amygdala, our emotional center, is super active.
Right.
Walker thinks this lets us process emotions in a safe space, offline, helps us regulate and build resilience.
It's like our brains are working through emotional stuff while we sleep.
Exactly, and it helps us wake up feeling more balanced.
That's incredible. But this whole sleep thing, it's not just a human thing, right?
Not at all. Almost every animal species studied shows some form of sleep.
Really?
It's universal. From insects to mammals, sleep is a part of life. Must be important for survival, right?
Mind-blowing. Okay, let's talk about what happens when we don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
We all know we feel groggy, but Walker paints a much scarier picture.
He does. One of the scariest things. Microsleeps.
Microsleeps.
They're these brief, involuntary lapses into sleep, just a few seconds, and you might not even realize it's happening.
Wait, you could be falling asleep without knowing it.
It happens. And Walker says being awake for 19 hours straight is like being legally drunk.
Seriously.
The same level of impairment. Driving while sleep deprived is as dangerous as drunk driving.
Wow, that's terrifying. I never thought of it that way.
It's not just inconvenience, it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
And it affects more than just our driving. It messes with our emotions, too.
Oh yeah, I get way more irritable when I'm tired.
More than that. Remember the amygdala. When we're sleep deprived, it becomes hyperactive.
Our emotional center goes into overdrive.
Exactly. And at the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part that helps us make rational decisions,
Yeah.
it becomes less active.
So it's like our emotions are running wild without any adult supervision.
Perfect analogy. And that explains why sleep-deprived people overreact, struggle with impulses, and feel more anger, anxiety, and sadness.
It's not just grumpiness, it's serious.
It can contribute to mental health issues, too. Depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, sleep deprivation can worsen it all.
It's a vicious cycle, right? Sleep deprivation makes mental health worse, and mental health problems make it harder to sleep.
Exactly. And then there's the impact on our physical health.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Where do we even begin? Does it mess with our hearts?
It does, big time.
Figures those all-nighters aren't good for us.
Chronic sleep deprivation is a major risk factor for heart disease, independent of diet and exercise.
Seriously.
Walker explains how sleep loss messes with blood pressure, increases inflammation, and makes plaque build up in your arteries.
So it's basically slowly damaging our hearts.
It's not great. And then there's our metabolism.
Right, sleep and weight gain. I knew this was coming.
It's a real thing. Sleep deprivation throws your metabolic health out of whack, higher risk of type 2 diabetes and obesity.
How did that work?
When we're sleep deprived, our bodies make less insulin.
Insulin.
It's the hormone that helps regulate blood sugar.
Okay.
Less insulin means our blood sugar control is messed up. Plus, we produce more cortisol, the stress hormone.
There's like a double whammy.
It is. Less of the good, more of the bad. And that makes us more prone to weight gain and metabolic problems.
Makes sense. And it's not just insulin and cortisol.
Nope. Our hunger hormones get out of whack, too. More ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and less leptin, the one that tells us we're full.
So we're hungrier, Andy.
Yeah.
Our bodies aren't processing food well.
Exactly. And we crave junk food on top of it all.
No wonder sleep deprivation is linked to weight gain. It's like a recipe for disaster.
It is. And speaking of disaster, we can't forget about the immune system.
Oh, right. Our defenses. Does lack of sleep actually make us more likely to get sick?
Absolutely. Walker cites studies showing that people who consistently get less than 7 hours of sleep are 3 times more likely to catch a cold.
Wow, 3 times.
And it's not just colds, it weakens our whole immune response, more vulnerable to infections, even potentially some cancers.
So we're literally weakening our defenses by not sleeping enough.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about something more fun. Dreams.
Yes, dreams. They're so strange and interesting.
They're not just random brain firings, though. Walker says they serve a purpose.
Really? What kind of purpose?
They help us process emotions, consolidate memories, and even boost creativity and problem solving.
Wow. Okay, I'm intrigued. How do dreams help us process emotions? You called REM sleep the overnight therapist earlier.
Exactly. During REM, the amygdala is going strong, but so are the areas of the brain that regulate emotions.
So we're working through emotional stuff in our sleep.
It's like a safe space to process things, and that helps us regulate our emotions when we're awake.
That's amazing. What about memory consolidation? How do dreams help us remember things?
Deep sleep helps solidify individual memories, but REM sleep is where we integrate those memories into our bigger understanding of the world.
So dreams help us make sense of everything.
Exactly. It's not just rote memorization, it's about connecting the dots. And that goes for skills and problem solving, too.
So those random dreams could be our brains working on solutions.
Exactly. Walker talks about how REM sleep can boost creative thinking and lead to those aha
That's
moments.
so cool. It's not just about resting our bodies, it's about our brains working too.
It is, but not all dreams are pleasant.
Definitely not. What about nightmares? Why do we have those?
They can be scary, but Walker thinks they might serve a protective function,
Protective.
like a way to confront our fears in a safe space.
Like a dress rehearsal for real life challenges.
Exactly. Helps us develop coping mechanisms.
Interesting. So those scary dreams might actually be helping us in the long run.
Potentially. But if they're frequent or really intense, it could be a sign of something deeper.
Stress, anxiety, trauma.
Exactly. In those cases, it's important to seek professional help.
Speaking of seeking help, let's talk about sleep disorders. We've talked about the science and the risks, but what about people who actually struggle to sleep?
Sleep disorders are more common than you think. Millions of people have them.
Like insomnia.
Insomnia is the most common one. That frustrating feeling of not being able to fall asleep or stay asleep.
I've been there, tossing and turning all night. What causes that?
Lots of things, actually. Stress, anxiety, medical conditions, medications, bad sleep habits.
It's not just one thing.
It's usually a combination. But there's hope for insomnia sufferers.
Really?
There are treatments that work, both medication and non-medication options.
Like what?
Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI, is really effective. It helps change the thoughts and behaviors that contribute to insomnia.
So it's not just about masking the problem. It's about fixing it.
Exactly. And that can lead to long-term solutions.
What about other sleep disorders? What's sleep apnea?
Sleep apnea is more serious than just snoring. It's when your breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep.
Wait, seriously? Their breathing just stops.
It does, because the muscles in the back of the throat relax and block the airway.
That sounds terrifying.
It disrupts sleep and deprives the body of oxygen.
No wonder people with sleep apnea are always tired.
Exactly. And it can lead to bigger problems too. High blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, even accidents.
Wow, so it's a big deal. Is there anything that can help?
There are treatments. Lifestyle changes like weight loss, quitting smoking, and avoiding alcohol can make a difference.
So healthy habits are good for sleep too.
Absolutely. And for many people, CPAP therapy is a game changer.
CPAP.
Continuous positive airway pressure. It's a mask that delivers a constant stream of air, keeping the airway open.
This is like a little air splint for your throat.
Exactly.
Nice.
Prevents those breathing interruptions.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
What about other sleep disorders? Are there any others we should know about?
There are a bunch, but one that's interesting is narcolepsy.
Narcolepsy, yeah. Isn't that when people fall asleep randomly?
Yep. It's a neurological disorder, messes with the brain's ability to regulate sleep-wake cycles.
So you just suddenly fall asleep even if you don't want to.
It can happen in the middle of conversations, activities.
That sounds really disruptive.
It is. And while there's no cure, there are medications and lifestyle changes that can help manage the symptoms.
So it's manageable, but still a big deal. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The main takeaway seems to be that if you're having sleep problems, talk to a doctor.
Absolutely. Don't just suffer through it. Sleep is too important.
And luckily, there are things we can do to improve our sleep ourselves too, right?
Lots of things. We call it sleep hygiene.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about it. Give me the tips.
Walker's got a whole chapter on practical tips. The first one, regularity.
Regulan.
Keeping a consistent sleep schedule. Going to bed and waking up around the same time every day,
Even on weekends.
especially on weekends.
Ugh, that's tough. But I guess it makes sense.
Think of it like training your body. The more consistent you are, the easier it is to fall asleep and wake up feeling good.
Okay, consistency is key. What about our sleep environment? Does that matter?
Absolutely. Walker talks about creating a sleep sanctuary.
A sleep sanctuary. I like it.
Dark, quiet and cool. That's the ideal bedroom.
Makes sense. Block out all the distractions.
Exactly. Invest in blackout curtains, earplugs, maybe a white noise machine.
And a comfy bed, of course.
Definitely. A supportive mattress and pillows are crucial.
Okay, so our bedroom should be like a sleep cave.
Hmm?
What are things we should avoid before bed?
Yes. The usual suspects, screens are a big one.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
That blue light messes with our melatonin production, the hormone that helps us sleep.
So no scrolling through social media before bed.
Walker recommends avoiding screens for at least an hour before you want to sleep.
Okay, no screens. What about food? Any late-night snacking rules?
The light snack is fine for some people, but avoid big meals or sugary treats close to bedtime.
So those midnight ice cream runs are a no-go.
Not ideal. Heavy meals make it harder to fall asleep, and sugar can mess with your sleep cycles.
Got it. But what about when our brains just won't shut off? Any tips for quieting those racing thoughts?
This is where a relaxing bedtime routine comes in.
Like a little pre-sleep ritual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Warm bath, reading, calming music, meditation, anything that helps you unwind.
Signal to the body and mind, time to chill.
Exactly. It's about creating positive sleep associations.
What about exercise? Does that help with sleep?
Big time. Walker is a big believer in the power of exercise for good sleep, helps regulate your circadian rhythm, reduces stress, and improves sleep quality overall.
So getting those workouts in is good for sleep too.
Definitely. Just avoid strenuous exercise right before bed. You want to be relaxed, not pumped up.
Okay, so exercise earlier in the day. Got it. But what if you've tried all these things and still can't sleep?
If you're having persistent problems, it's time to talk to a doctor.
Makes sense. Maybe there's an underlying medical condition or a sleep disorder we don't know about.
Exactly. Don't suffer in silence. Sleep is too important to ignore. You know, one thing that really struck me while reading Walker's book is how our society views sleep.
What do you mean?
We almost wear sleep deprivation as a badge of honor.
I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, like it's something to be proud of.
Exactly. It's like we think sleep is for the weak, that successful people just power through exhaustion.
Walker would disagree, I bet.
He absolutely does. He dismantles that myth with tons of research. Sleep deprivation hurts our health, our well-being, even our ability to think clearly.
So we're actually less productive when we don't sleep enough. It's counterproductive.
It is, but we live in a culture that values busyness and productivity above all else.
Sleep gets pushed aside.
Exactly. It's seen as an obstacle, something to be minimized.
We've forgotten that sleep is a basic human need.
We have. It's essential for survival, for thriving. It's not a weakness, it's a superpower.
I love that. A superpower. So as we wrap up this deep dive into sleep, I want to challenge everyone listening. What if, instead of bragging about how little sleep we get, we celebrated those restful nights?
I'm all for that.
What if we prioritize sleep as much as we prioritize our diet and exercise?
Imagine how much better we'd all feel.
Exactly. So let's make sleep a non-negotiable part of our lives.
Agreed. Let's reclaim those restful nights and unlock the power of sleep.
Thanks for joining us on this sleep journey. Sweet dreams, everyone.
So, ready to dive into those practical tips?
I am. Give me all the sleep wisdom.
It's like mastering any skill. Practice and consistency are key.
Okay.
Walker really hammers this point home, the importance of a regular sleep schedule.
Going to bed and waking up at the same time, right?
Exactly, even on weekends.
Ugh. Even on weekends, that's the hard part. Sleeping in is the best.
I know, it's tempting. But try to stick to it as much as possible. It really helps regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
So it's like training our bodies to expect sleep at a certain time.
Exactly. Makes it easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling refreshed.
All right, fine. I'll try to be more consistent. What about our sleep environment? Does that make a difference?
Huge difference. Walker talks about creating a sleep sanctuary.
Ooh, a sleep sanctuary. I like that.
It should be dark, quiet, and cool.
Makes sense. Block out all the distractions.
Exactly. Invest in blackout curtains, earplugs, maybe a white noise machine if you need it.
And a comfy bed, of course.
Oh, absolutely. A good mattress and pillows are essential.
Okay, so comfy bed, dark, quiet, cool. My bedroom needs to be like a sleep cave. What about things we should avoid before bed?
The usual suspects. Screens are a big one.
Yeah, I figured that was coming.
That blue light from our phones, laptops, TVs. It suppresses melatonin.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone, right?
Exactly. It makes it harder to fall asleep. Walker suggests no screens for at least an hour before bed.
Okay, screens off. What about late night snacking? Any rules there?
A small snack is okay for some, but avoid big meals or sugary treats right before bed.
No more midnight ice cream runs.
Not if you want a good night's sleep. Heavy meals make it harder to fall asleep, and sugar can disrupt your sleep cycle.
Got it. No heavy meals, no sugar. But what about when my mind just won't quiet down? Any tips for those racing thoughts?
That's where a relaxing bedtime routine comes in.
Like a little ritual to wind down.
Exactly. A warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music, meditation,
Mm.
whatever helps you relax.
So we're signaling to our body and mind that it's time to chill.
Exactly. Creating those positive sleep associations.
What about exercise? I know working out can tire you out, but does it actually help you sleep better?
It absolutely does. Walker's a huge advocate for exercise. Helps regulate your circadian rhythm, reduces stress, improves sleep quality overall.
So hitting the gym is good for our sleep too.
Definitely. Just avoid strenuous workouts right before bed.
Makes sense. Don't want to be all pumped up when I'm trying to wind down. So exercise earlier in the day. Got it. But what if I've tried all these things and I'm still struggling?
If you're having persistent sleep problems, don't hesitate to talk to a doctor.
Okay, yeah. It's not something to just tough out.
Definitely not. Maybe there's an underlying medical condition or a sleep disorder. A doctor can help figure that out.
Makes sense. One thing that really struck me while reading Walker's book is how messed up our society's view of sleep is.
Oh, yeah.
We wear sleep deprivation as a badge of honor. Like it's something to brag about.
I only slept 4 hours last night.
Exactly. As if it means you're working harder, more dedicated.
Walker calls it a dangerous myth that successful people sacrifice sleep for productivity.
Which is ironic because we're actually less productive when you're sleep deprived.
Totally. But we live in a culture that glorifies busyness and productivity.
And sleep gets pushed aside.
Seen as an obstacle, something to minimize or even eliminate.
We need a serious mindset shift. Sleep is a basic human need.
It is essential for survival, for thriving.
It's not a weakness, it's a superpower.
Exactly. We need to start viewing sleep as an investment.
An investment in our health, well-being, even our longevity.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into sleep, I want to challenge everyone listening. Let's change the narrative.
Yes. Let's celebrate those restful nights.
Let's prioritize sleep like we prioritize diet and exercise.
Make it a non-negotiable part of our lives.
Because sleep is a superpower.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of sleep. Sweet dreams, everyone.